Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Keep it going for Drums Etc. and Adam for doing all this. This is great. I'm the last presenter, so this is. I hope there are many more to come. My name is Cory Paternoster. I'm born and raised in, well, not born, but raised in Lancaster County. I was born in New Jersey. Don't take a, yeah. So my musical journey kind of started when I was pretty young. I knew from the get-go that I wanted to play in a band, but I didn't know how to play any instruments. So I kind of had a journey of finding things. I started with guitar, and then my fingers hurt, so I stopped doing that. And then I played clarinet, and that's just not that fun. But everybody needs a good clarinet player, though. That's for sure. And then I went to trumpet, and I was like, I don't know how to make 3 buttons do all the notes, so it was a whole thing. So then when we moved to Pennsylvania, I actually told my parents that I wanted to play drums, and they said no. So obviously, I had a long track record of not playing or not continuing with the instruments, and then I asked my parents, can I play the loudest instrument there is? And they obviously said no. So after some coercing, they decided that we could make a deal, and the deal was that if I took drum lessons with a drum pad for a certain amount of time, that I could have a drum set. So, at first didn't sound like a good deal, but I figured it was better than nothing. So I decided to go with that. And actually, I think that alone taught me a lot because I kind of had to, kind of earn it a little bit. All the other instruments, I got a guitar. Couldn't play it. I was like, all right, go to it. Okay, clarinet. Got a clarinet. Oh, all right, don't want that. Oh, we're renting a trumpet. Okay, cool. I had to work for it a little bit, and it actually ended up being a good thing. Especially as a drum teacher now, it kind of allows me to I can relate to students' parents who are like, we don't want to buy them a drum set right away. I was like, I get it. It's the loudest thing. Oh, you live in the city. Yeah, your neighbors aren't going to like it too much until he or she could actually play. You know what I mean? So after I kind of found drums, I kind of hit my stride a little bit. I realized that I could actually do it. I took lessons for a year. I remember having a coffee bin where I would put my cash, my allowance, so I could save up for a drum set. I had a little picture of a drum set in it. And then I remember for, I guess it was probably Easter, or it was around maybe like springtime. I just remember my parents being like, all right, cool, give us some of your money from the jar. I'm like, why? And they were like, well, go downstairs. And I was like, oh my God. And they bought me a drum set, probably from Drums Etc. if I had to guess. It was definitely a really good experience for me to kind of have to earn that a little bit. And then from there, it was all downhill. I stopped playing sports, and I played music full time, and it was a great thing. When I was kind of in high school, I realized that I wasn't very good at volleyball. I was getting my ass kicked out there. I was pretty much just like a punching bag via a volleyball. I was just like. And they were just annihilating me. And we were also, everybody else was very good at volleyball, and I was just not that good. But I was pretty good at drums, so I decided to kind of take that to the next level and, start doing marching band, start doing concert band, even though I really didn't want to. That, wasn't a musical style that really appealed to me, but I saw that if I wanted to do music full time, or even just as a professional, I had to kind of have a very well-rounded background. Kind of like what Rick was saying, you gotta be able to do everything. When the gig calls, you have to be able to play a concert snare drum piece. If someone's offering you money to play concert snare drum, why wouldn't you at least try? Do you know what I mean? So from there, my mom was really hell-bent on me going to college, which it wasn't a bad thing, even though I really didn't want to. I was really bad at school, so I was not really keen on it. But she said I could go for whatever I wanted, so I went for music. And I realized that right before I went to school, my cousin had gone for music recording. So my original idea was actually to go for music performance, and my drum teacher at the time, Jim Love, who I was taking with at Drums Etc. at the old location, told me not to do music performance. He was like, don't do that. I was just like, well, why not? He's like, well, when you go for a music degree, you're going to be doing all the performance things. You can take all the extra lessons. You can take all of the extra theory, composition, orchestration classes because you're at music school already. He's like, learn a trade. There are so many music trades. I think Ken mentioned it. There's ethnomusicology. Now, again, he didn't major in ethnomusicology, but my God, this is ethnomusicology. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where when I found out that I could go to school for recording, I was like, holy crap, that's a degree. Like, oh my God, this is pretty sweet. There's like music therapy, there's music business, and I just knew for a fact that I didn't want to stand in front of a large group of people and talk about music. No. but here I am. No. But for me, it was like a band director. Like I've had amazing band directors, and I've had really bad band directors. You know, there's all sorts of kinds. You know, you don't always get lucky. Luckily, here in PA, like we have a really, really solid music program. Most of the high schools around this area have really, really good music programs. So I got really fortunate with a good music director in high school, and I got really fortunate with a good drum teacher at Drums Etc. So it kind of was able to prepare me for what I thought I wanted to do. So I knew going into music recording that I didn't want to be a studio engineer. I just knew that I would probably have to know how to record at some point, and I knew that I would have to know signal flow or whatever to make these things work. You don't just plug it in, you have to turn it on too, you know? You gotta like EQ, you gotta do all that kind of stuff. So when I found out that my cousin was going for music recording, it kind of sent me on that path to also go down for music recording. And also, you know, you're listening to Led Zeppelin and you're just like, how do they get that sound? Oh, they're in a castle. Okay, well, how do I replicate the castle sound? You know, so when I went to school, I ended up really kind of getting the epitome of well-rounded, because I went to Lebanon Valley College, which very expensive school, and I'm grateful for my time, but you know, we're all still in debt. All my friends, we're all still in debt from LVC. But in all honesty, it was well worth it, because you know, we met all of our friends. The people that I still play in bands with are still are still people from college. So I'm very fortunate in that regard, and it was a great recording program and music performance. So I ended up majoring in both recording and performance. But in addition to that, I also had to take 5 different kinds of physics classes. I had 2 semesters of physics 101, physics 201, whatever, I don't know, the first 2 levels, and then they're like, now you're going to do electronics. Now electronics was literally a class where half of it was music majors, where we're all like, what is going on? And the other half is like physics majors who are doing it for fun, and we're getting our butts kicked out there. You know what I mean? All the music majors, we're literally competing for grades. Like the guy's like, here's the average of the whole class, and we're like, okay, so this half is the music majors and this half is the physics majors. Cool. So you know what I mean? It was just like we were all like in over our heads. But the thing is, like, we got a lot of good knowledge from those classes like that. Now, did I pass with flying colors? No. But do I know how to solder my pedals when they break? Yes. You know what I mean? Like, it makes a big difference when I don't have to, like, you know, go to Guitar Center and be like, I know, why did that work? Adam, do you know how to put the pedals? There are no pedals here. Where do I go? You know what I mean? So it made a really big difference, just kind of having that well-rounded mindset. And I knew going into college, that's the one thing that I wanted to do. All I knew was I wanted to play drums, I wanted to play in a band, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make a living off of that right away, at least. So my kind of presentation that I wanted to talk about was my favorite word ever, which is dynamics. Now, dynamics, does anyone know the definition of dynamics? You can just call it out, anyone. Ryan, what do you say the definition of dynamics are? Volume, exactly. And in musical terms, that's exactly what it is. But dynamics, if you Google it, which I did, there are 3 different definitions of dynamics. All right, so we have the music one, which is volume, essentially, right? So you know, if this is your highest level, you know, when we play drums, the first thing we do, max it out, right? You hit that bass drum and that crash cymbal, and someone's like, oh my God, you know, this is as loud as it can go. And I tell my students all the time, yeah, you know, you can play as loud as you want. That's the easy part. You know, hitting a drum is loud is easy. Anybody can do that. Anybody who sits behind a drum set plays it loud, right? The difference between a good drummer or good musician and, you know, just the average Joe is the person who can play not just up here, but also down here. Because if you play, you know, your highest volume and your lowest volume right here, this is your dynamic range. This is not good. If I'm just talking to you like this, you're going to get real tired real fast. But if I'm like this, and then I'm like this, and then I'm like this, it's a little bit more interesting, right? So as far as music goes, you have to be able to play not just here, also here. When it comes to getting gigs, when it comes to playing any show in the entire world, you have to be able to control your volume, whether you're a guitar player, bass player, drummer, especially drummer, because I mean we play the loudest instrument. Other people are like, all right, cool, I'm gonna turn it down, and that's a little bit better. Okay, is that better? Drummers were like, God, we're like, oh crap, like that's okay. How soft can I hit the snare drum? God, okay. I guess I could put some muffling on it, whatever. But the biggest lesson I ever learned was from another local drummer named Josh Kanuski. I don't know. Does anyone know Josh Kanuski here? You know Josh? Yeah. So I remember I saw Josh. Now, Josh is playing with this guy named Tuck Ryan, who I play with now. I did not play with Tuck Ryan before because I was a very loud drummer. I got out of college and I was but that was my thing. At first, I thought my thing was I'm the loud guy. I'm very expressive. I jump out of my chair. I'm like beating the crap out of drums, and everyone's just like, yeah, this rocks. You know, I thought that was my thing, but I realized very quickly that doesn't necessarily pay the bills. You know, like I really needed those other gigs that were like, you know, the 2 or 3 hour jazz sets or the 2 or 3 hour R&B sets where we're sitting in the corner while people are eating dinner. Like those on a Wednesday night pays just as much as, you know, a sick gig on a Saturday. You know what I mean? So I saw Josh play with Chuck, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, well, why are people like Josh getting that gig? And I literally walked up to Josh and I was like, will you give me a drum lesson? Now, I already know how to play the drums. I am teaching drum lessons, but I'm asking this guy for a drum lesson because he has something that I don't, which was dynamics. It was literally like volume. And he straight up said no. He was just like, nah, dude, I don't teach drum lessons. I was like, oh, I already know how to play the drums. So he's like, oh, well, in that case, yeah, sure, I'll sit down with you and teach you how to play some stuff. And literally the best thing he ever did the best thing he ever said to me was, play to the room. You know, if you're playing a drum set in a room like this, you can't be bashing away. You know what I mean? People need to be able to have a conversation over top of you. You know, someone's like, you know, like looking at the snare drums and you're doing jazz over here in the corner. And you're like, if they can't, you know, have a conversation with Adam or Ryan while they're looking at these snare drums about it, while you're, you know, making music in the background, like, makes a big difference. Now, if you're the center of attention and people are paying for your ticket cost and you're playing at a big old room where they have everything mic'd up, you can play a little bit harder, but still, you're mic'd up. You don't need to play it that hard. You know what I mean? So what I try to tell my students as much as I can is, as much as you're practicing, make sure you're practicing everything at different volumes too. Because when it comes down to it, like that's how you're going to get the gig, is being able to play not just, you know, all the parts, but also being able to play to whatever situation you're in. So like Ryan said, like when it comes to music, volume is kind of like the definition of dynamics. But the other two definitions come from physics and philosophy. So they kind of all tie together. So the definition of physics when it comes to dynamics is the branch of mechanics concerned with the motions of body under the action of forces. That's a lot. Okay, so basically what that is simply saying is that it's when change is considered. So I think that's a pretty good lesson for us all as, you know, musicians and just humans in general, is when you're kind of you know, considering yourself as a human. It's not just, you know, you didn't just wake up yesterday and become who you were. You know, you're who you are. It's more so like, you know, your parents who raised you, or your friendships that you've developed over time, and everything that's happened up until this point. You know, everything that, you know, happened last week affects you now. Everything that happened when you were in college affects you now. Like, it's basically the measurement of change over time, which is who we end up being. You know, so I think that's a good life lesson, that, like I said, as humans or as musicians. And I think, you know, if you talk to me, you know, 5 or 6 years ago when I came out of college, like, I was definitely a different player than I am now. I was, you know, like I said, I was a basher. I love John Bonham, and I'm going to play the drum set like John Bonham. I was going to beat the crap out of it. But now I realize that when you're experiencing people and kind of, you know, meeting people in passing, it's a little bit more about their experience and your experience and where you guys are in that moment, and that kind of change that has brought you to that point. And then when it comes to like the philosophical version of dynamics, it's that it says the forces of properties in which it stimulates growth, development, or change within a system or process. And I think that's almost like even better as far as going to describe like the human experience, right? It's all about growth and kind of that ability to change within yourself. You know, it's not like, you know, Ken woke up one day with all these instruments. You know, he literally, you know, found a gong and fell in love with a gong. You know, that this gong in and of itself describes Ken. That drum riser that Rick talked about, that's the difference between, you know, the drummer that you met the other day and Rick. Rick's the guy that brings the drum riser and the PA and the lights, because he's been to the gig where the drummer didn't show up with any of that stuff, and he knows what it's like to watch a show that doesn't have any of that. You know, he wants to be that change where he like is convincing like young drummers, older drummers to be like, I'm going to get that riser, you know? I'm going to just get the lights, you know? I'm going to be the drummer that shows up and knows how to just do the harmonies for that chorus, you know? So I think if you guys could take away anything from, you know, all of these drum talks and all these shop talks that Drums Etc. did, it's really, really that change is good. Change is scary, but change is good. You know, that's going to help you grow. It's going to help you be a better person and a better musician. The other thing that really comes with all of this when it comes to dynamics is being able to grow and develop in those specific areas that pertain to your music. So I'm a drummer, right? I told you I took guitar lessons and I didn't do so hot. But because I took drum lessons and because I said yes to singing in the rock camp and playing bass, I'm like, I just own a bass. That was literally the only thing. They're like, yeah, you want to play this Sublime song and sing it? I'm like, I guess so. You know, I just like literally bought a bass because I thought, I'm like, this will be easier than guitar. And I'd never played it before. And then they're like, yeah, you want to just be the bass player on the song? I was just like, I guess I should probably practice that song now. But now I am literally the bass player in a touring band. You know what I mean? Like it makes a difference. You know, saying yes to those little things just because I had the Ibanez bass that cost me $75 made a difference. Now I'm like, oh man, buying that P bass for $350 is kind of worth it because now I have a band to play it in, you know. So having that wide variety of skill is huge. And like I said, like going to school for recording, like I did my internship when I got done school, and now I literally have a studio in Westchester that I can call and go to any day that I want. Do you know what I mean? So, and on top of that, because I went and did that internship, because I know that guy who works in Westchester who kind of knows this dude and this dude, like I've worked with so many cool artists. Like literally the guy who wrote all the Taking Back Sunday songs just came back and just like was recording in the studio. He's like, yeah, he's like, the lead singer doesn't really write any of the songs. He's like, I wrote all those songs off the record that you know. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, Fred. Your name is Fred. I'm like, Fred is a rock star. But he's literally just like some dude that lives in Westchester. And he wrote these crazy songs, and he just circumstantially records at the studio. Like, I met Bam Margera. I don't even know. I didn't even watch any of his skate videos, but Bam Margera is just sitting in the studio watching his brother like record drums. I'm like sitting there just like, this is pretty crazy. But again, it was one of those things that recording was something that I knew that I was going to have to be involved in. And now I am currently like rewiring a studio that we have. You know, I've never wired a studio before, but I know a guy who has, you know, so those things that like kind of reaching out and making sure that, you know, you're if someone says, oh, can you just like record, like, do you know how to like record this? And you're like, well, I kind of like use GarageBand. Just say yes, you know, just do it. It'd be like, lay it out, be like, I don't really know how to record all that well, but I can try it for you. You know, we can make a demo. I can make a demo for you. You know, it's about starting somewhere. And the other thing is having that range of skills to be able to, you know, help somebody out if they need it. Yeah, so I think the main points that I wanted to say was, like, you know, make sure you have a wide range of skills. It's not about being a one-trick pony. It really, being a musician is about having so many different skills and being able to, you don't have to play bass, you don't have to play guitar, but if you're a drummer, like, be able to play the tambourine. Be able to be the guy that can do the shaker. If someone calls you to just play drums on the track, don't end there, you know. Be the guy that's like, let's put tambourine on that. How about hand claps in the chorus? I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like those little things go a long way, and a lot of times people just don't think about that. And the other thing, playing dynamically at gigs and not overplaying to a room. I'm not sitting here yelling at y'all. I mean, I could if you want to. I can yell pretty loudly. I'm from New Jersey. We don't have to do that though. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. No. And then to grow, you need to be accepting of change. And I know that that's probably my least favorite thing in the world. I hate change. It's awful. I told my girlfriend's back there, and she's like, we should get a new apartment. I'm like, but then we gotta move everything. I was like, and then what if it's not even that much better? And what if the rent's more? And what if it's change is always hard. But next time we move, it's probably gonna be pretty dope, and we're probably gonna actually have a backyard. So change is good. Another round of applause for Drums Etc. Rick, Ken, thank you guys so much for talking today. My name is Cory Paternoster, and thank you guys so much for chilling.